How do viewer? You took me by surprise. It seems like an age since I spoke directly to you lot, because I've not been doing as many videos I've not been doing any gameplay videos for a couple of weeks, and there are reasons behind that, and I'm going to do a video about it because it's a video that I want to do, and I feel that if people are taking the time out to subscribe to my channel and watch my videos, and they suddenly don't see any videos, then I'm obliged to, I'm obliged to explain myself and explain why. And I'm going to go into detail about it because I feel I should, and I feel it will help me with what I'm doing and going through and everything like that. So, what I hope you can do now is sit back, grab yourself a coffee. No, grab yourself a coffee, sit back, and listen to this bumptious moron carry on and carry on and carry on, and continue to lie to his audience in a rather, if you haven't, or if you don't know anything, in a rather convincing way. What I don't like about this guy, he's probably a nice fellow in real life, I don't know, and I don't care, to be honest. What I don't like about him is that he knows he's lying. I'm convinced that he knows he is lying. And that's what I don't like about people. People who know they're lying and then perpetuate their lies onto somebody else, and I don't like that. But anyway, rant over, sit back, enjoy my northern dulcet tones, and listen to this guy, because goodness me, he talks some shit.
Nobody falls off this ball because the Earth has its own magical force of gravity.
Well, it's not a magical force, it's an apparent force. You can't actually see it, but you know it's there.
Which is also responsible for defying every experiment conducted.
Defying what experiments ever conducted?
By curving large bodies of water around itself, allowing it to stick tightly to the outside of this sphere while it's rotating, spinning, and flying at these insane speeds. And if that's not enough, the Earth's gravity is supposedly responsible for holding the moon at the same distance to appear the exact same size as the sun, which is supposed to be 92,762,000 miles further away, and somehow only seeing one face of it ever.
I had to edit a bit out earlier on because I was showing a clip from Dumb and Dumber with Jeff Daniels' tongue stuck to a lamppost. I'm not quite sure what that signifies. I'm presuming it signifies that flat earthers are particularly stupid. Yes, the sun and the moon, the same face of the moon always facing the Earth. I believe it's called tidal locking. I don't know an awful lot about it, but I might do some research.
All while keeping everyone unaware that they are standing sideways in Florida, or airplanes are landing upside down in Australia, because technically there is no up or down in space.
There's no up and down on a ball either. Sideways in Florida and upside down in Australia. Oh, for goodness sake, this is the same old crap every single time. Oh, just give me 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Here we go. Right. Let me plug me deaf ear back in. Right. This is a ball. This is a duck. Duck on ball. Yes. Ball rotates. Yeah, it rotates. I'm not moving it. Can you see the duck? It's not very scientific, but there you go, the duck. Right. Somebody is going to have to explain to me How many times did that duck appear upside down in relation to the ball? I mean, it was never upside down, was it? Never. There's no up and down on a ball. The only up and down on a ball is up towards the sky and down is towards your feet. That's it. North does not mean up. South does not mean down. Stop saying Australians are upside down because they will get annoyed with you.
This is what we're told. This is what we're indoctrinated with.
The only time that we are told that Australians are upside down, or that people in Florida are sideways, or that rivers flow uphill south to north, is the only time that we are told these things is by flat earthers. That's the only time. The globe model never ever makes any claims like this. Nothing. Nana, not at all. Zero, zilch, and any other thing I can think of. Any word I can think of with zero connected to it. Oh yeah, flat earthers.
But by the time we can rationalize and question this theory, it becomes one of the only beliefs that we ever allow ourselves to think about. Our intellect and critical thinking mechanism has been clouded by the constant barrage of programming and conditioning, further reinforcing almost every mainstream media angle imaginable. That, coupled with believing that our education system is actually based in truth, will further confuse and dislodge our ability to think and reason.
The education system is based in truth. Yeah, I'll pretty much go along with that. Apart from religious education, of course. I was taught religious education at school. I believed in God. And then since I've gotten older, I've come to realise that there's no evidence for God. And that prayer or faith will not, no amount of prayer or no amount of faith in God or whatsoever will bring my dad back from the dead. Will it? No. So what's the point?
Our programming even contradicts our observations, logic, and senses. How many images of the Earth, Ball, did you see this last week? It's everywhere. And virtually, it's relentless if you watch TV at all during our dose of daily programming.
Well, does that not tell you something? Does that not tell you that the accepted consensus is the fact that the Earth is a sphere? Every single person believes it. 99.99999% of people believe the Earth to be a sphere, and there's overwhelming amounts of evidence for it. Do you know how much evidence there is for a flat Earth?
It's been so effective that even dedicated Bible-believing teachers, pastors, and theologians look at the biblical account of earthly descriptions and are dumbfounded as to why the authors of the Bible obviously made such a foundational error they can't explain. Even they end up sliding down the slippery slope of trying to justify by backpedaling into appeasement to avoid committing the worst cardinal sin of all, being considered a science denier.
Science denial isn't a sin, is it? You can deny science all you like, but come up with an alternative, or show some evidence for your beliefs. You know, instead of just going, well, God did it. Back it up.
Literal biblical interpretation is now watered down and suggested to be poetic, figurative, or metaphorical due to our new knowledge from our space programs and solar models.
Well, the Bible is metaphorical. It shouldn't be taken literally. Because, like I said before, if you took it literally, you'd be believing in talking snakes and all the other stuff. Just take it metaphorically. You don't have to follow something literally.
Some Bible teachers have even said Moses, Job, and Isaiah, they didn't understand the earth was a spinning globe because they didn't own their own rockets.
Yeah, of course they did. Sounds like something a flat earther would say, though.
Ask yourself these questions. Does scientism's model of these speeds match what the Word of God says?
Oh, but then we know differently now, don't we? Because it's been measured.
Do the scriptural descriptions match a ball or a sphere flying through space?
Nope, but they don't match a flat earth either, do they?
Should we overlook all the passages outlining pillars and foundations to agree with the theory of scientism?
No, don't overlook them at all. What science does is ask questions. So you ask questions about your theories on your passages and stuff like that. Find evidence for your passages. And then let's test them together.
Could we have been brainwashed unknowingly into believing a lie of satanic proportions?
Satanic proportions, and see what you've done there, you slippery little blancmange. You're preaching now, aren't you? That's all you're doing now. You're preaching, which you're fine, and you're absolutely perfectly welcome and perfectly within your rights to do so. But don't state them as facts without any evidence.
Could this belief be a component of the delusion that we were warned about at the end of the age?
What delusion? Oh, crikey, it's going dark in here. Ta-da! So you can tell how long it's taken me to edit this video, can't you?
We're told to believe that we do not feel any movement due to the constant unchanging motion of the Earth, as well as the entire atmosphere moving along with the rotation, because gravity is holding the entire atmosphere in place. But let's assume this is possible.
Don't need to make any assumptions at all. It's been evidenced. It's been tested. And we have evidence for it. Why don't you come up with a theory all on your own and test your theory? And let's see how far you get. And let's see how long you get laughed at.
Have you ever watched a hummingbird or a bumblebee move through the air? Or a butterfly flutter its wings so peacefully, playfully bouncing from flower to flower? What happened to the potency of this force of gravity that can hold the air to earth, the water to the earth, people and automobiles to earth, but not affect airplanes or helicopters in flight or any of these very unique little flying creatures?
Aeroplanes and helicopters need gravity to fly. There's an equation where an airplane can fly. Thrust combined with gravity combined with lift, and that creates lift, and and up forces and down forces, and goodness knows what. Far too complicated for me to understand. Complicated. Yes, that word that I can't say. That one. Yeah. Hummingbirds, bees, butterflies. Their mass is so tiny, their weight is so tiny that they can just flap the wings and defy the laws of gravity. Because gravity is by far the weakest of the fundamental forces anyway. Because it just is. And I forgot my train of thought.
We're told about the Coriolis effect, a different force that acts perpendicular to the direction of the Earth's motion and to the axis of its rotation. But I thought the Earth's atmosphere was held to the surface by gravity's force, which is why we don't feel the atmosphere moving.
You do feel the atmosphere moving. It's called wind. And there is ever such a slight drag on the, when the Earth spins and the atmosphere spins, there's ever such a slight drag on that. So, but obviously you can't feel it because you're in continuous motion. You're rotating with the Earth. You don't feel rotation. You don't feel speed. You feel acceleration. But you don't feel constant motion. I mean, if you're in a plane, you'll never guess how. You can guess how many miles per hour you go. But you can't do. You can't do it for certainty. You can't feel that motion. You can only feel acceleration.
The Coriolis effect teaches us that long-distance shooters must account for this effect when calculating a shot. But no long-distance shooter has to do this in real life.
Really? Not according to this little snippet I found on AmericanShootingJournal.com.
They simply calculate their target placement while considering the bullet's drop based on distance and velocity, as well as any windage effects from side to side, but they never adjust for the Coriolis effect.
Yes, they do. Over 1,000 yards. I've just shown you. You don't read, man.
The Coriolis effect only exists as part of curriculum in science books, but not in reality.
Well, it does exist in reality, unfortunately. Just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it isn't there. I mean, you can't see wind, for instance. You can just see the effects of wind. And you can't see centrifugal force, but if you spin a bucket of water around, there's some force keeping that in the bucket there, but you can't see that force, can you? You can't see gravity, but we know it's there.
Now for my airline pilot friend who wrote me the email. Think about how much this force would change our flight travel. If it were real, there would be considerable flight time disparities between flying east versus flying west. Airplanes don't account for the Coriolis effect.
I want to imagine they do, because they have this thing called, what's it called? Steering. Yes, they have a thing called steering where they have this thing in front of them and they turn it one way and then they go one way. They turn it the other way and then they go the other way. It's weird. Cars have something similar, and I believe ships have something similar. The steering through the water. Yeah, pretty much. If you want to steer somewhere, you pretty much need a wheel to go with it.
They make their flight plans according to the assumption of flying across a flat and stationary Earth.
They do, because an aeroplane is really, really small in comparison to the Earth, which is really, really, really big. So even if you're on a plane, it still looks flat. Doesn't mean it's flat. There's the famous basketball pick. When you're low onto a basket, I haven't got it on this computer, I don't know why. If you're very, very low, even a basketball looks flat. And then you zoom away from it, and obviously it's spherical.
By the way, the phrase flat and non-rotating Earth has been found throughout dozens of declassified documents in reference to NASA, military, and other agencies' own training manuals regarding assumptions to be made when flying aircrafts over the Earth. But you'll never hear this reported on Fox News, MSNBC, or CNN, will you?
No, because even CNN knows the Earth is a sphere.
Another way we've been convinced the Earth is moving is the Foucault pendulum. This is a device taught as an experiment to demonstrate Earth's rotation, therefore proving rotation exists. They say this is a proof for Earth's movement, but museum guides are now admitting they have to reset them by putting the pendulum into motion daily.
Foucault's pendulum, yes. Ask Anthony Riley about Foucault's pendulum. On second thoughts, don't. Yes, Foucault's pendulum. Yeah, you say it's proof. No, it is evidence that the Earth rotates. And if you can think of any better evidence, then please, give it a shot. I can't believe you just said that they have to reset them daily. Yes, because the Earth moves so slow, it hardly has an effect on the pendulum itself. So it will come to a stop. Anything that's in motion will remain at motion until it is acted on by another force. That force is gravity. I know you don't like that word, and I'm not going to bleep it out just because you don't like it. So there you go.
Newer versions of these so-called Foucault pendulums include motors to keep the pendulum in constant motion. This has even been admitted by installers who build these hypnotizing displays of deceit.
Hypnotizing displays of deceit? Well, aren't you just a little bucket of word salad? Yes, they have motors on them to keep them in motion, but the motors themselves do not dictate which direction that they go in. Not at all. So stop lying, you lying little weird-bearded, cat-wearing blancmange!
Our God-given senses should be able to help you perceive we're not moving faster than the speed of sound.
Our God-given senses? No. Evolution gave us these senses. And you're probably an evolution denier. I don't know if you are or not, but the way you're quoting scripture, I'm probably guessing that you are. But that doesn't matter. That's a debate for another time. I'll be glad to have that with you. Our senses are shit. They're absolutely crap. So why would you trust them? If you could trust your senses, right? You do the old box, you objects in a box type thing. You put your hand in a box and have a feel about it. If your senses were that good, you'd be able to tell what it is straight away, couldn't you? But you can't. You can't smell something from Your sense of smell is confused, your sense of hearing is confused. You think you hear noises, but you don't hear noises. You think you see objects in the distance, but you don't see objects in the distance. You know we can see mirages, but they're not really there, are they? Senses are crap, mate. Stop trusting them.
Have you ever really believed that you're moving thousands of miles an hour at every given moment?
Yes, because I haven't got any reason not to believe it. Got evidence.
If science can't prove any of this,
Science does not prove things.
and your senses can't validate the movement,
We have tools and instruments to validate movement. Don't need your senses for any of that.
and God said He created the earth to be completely stable on its pillared foundations,
God didn't say that. The men who wrote the Bible said God told them. But we have no way of validating that, do we?
and cannot be moved. What is your logical conclusion?
Think you're a Bible bashing, evidence denying, science denying, cat wearing, weird bearded blancmange?
I have had so many Christians say to me, "What does it matter whether I believe in a flat earth or a round globe? I still believe in Jesus." It matters because you don't believe what the rest of His Word says about His creation.
His creation, His word, the Bible. Nowhere in the Bible does it say the earth is flat.
The world will continue to believe the lies that Satan inspires and preaches through those who do his will.
But I'm an atheist and I don't believe in Satan. So where does that leave me? The earth's a banana.
But it's not God's will for His people to be ignorant. Some of them will continue to be just like the prophet Hosea said.
Right, I think we're going to leave him there just for now because all he does now is quote scripture and start preaching and promises to wash me of all my sins because I'm ignorant. But anyway, if you like what I do, please consider liking, please consider subscribing, and please comment below if you think I've got something wrong or right, and if you want to take the mickey out of me. Anyway, ta-ra!